In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. Muhammad is his messenger, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is our divine reminder and warner that's in our midst. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Jock Brothers Presents Let Us Make Man. This is a podcast of brothers that desires nothing more than to show you what a positive image of what spiritual men of God should be, for we all are family men who love our children. We all are businessmen. We all are youth mentors, and we all work hard in our communities to make it a decent and safe place to live. When putting this podcast together, we decided to govern our actions by 3 rules. 1 was to put God first in all that we do. 2 was to present content to podcasts that can make you a better you. And 3, to showcase brotherhood and unity among men. And you don't see a lot of that these days, but among men that you can be proud of. My name is Brother Abdul Kawi Muhammad. I be one of your hosts and your moderator for this show. I hope you are very interested in this show. We are very honored to have this particular type of guest on, somebody that really knows biologically the sciences of the body. And so I'm a brother person that's very interested in the root of things, the beginning of things, motivations and inspiration. So I hope you enjoy those lines of questioning. Another host of the Jock Brothers is my brother that's a well-traveled young man that was born and raised out of New York City. This brother here is the producer of the show. If you are trying to build any type of team, if you want any measure of success, that's the brother right here to call. I'm talking about my brother. My brother, Ahmed Bia. Assalamu alaikum, top soldier.
Salam. In the name of Allah, Beneficent, the Merciful. We thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us tonight. We are the Jock Brothers. You can view us on YouTube. You can view us on Facebook and Instagram. We're on at 7 p.m. Tuesday nights live. Ahmed and my co-host, Brother Kawi, and we have an exciting show for you tonight. So just check it out, get your pen and pads out, and we're trying to build a healthy lifestyle and a healthy, long life for all our listeners, friends, family, and loved ones. Thank you.
Praise be to Allah. All right. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I do not have a bio on this sister that I'm going to read out. However, I got some nice things I want to say about this sister. First of all, I believe she got her podcast introduction on the Jock Brothers. And since then, I don't know, in terms of the Nation of Islam is concerned, but since then I've seen her everywhere. She absolutely electrifies the podcast wherever she goes. She absolutely knows what she's talking about. She's a part of our morning prayer team with the Fajr prayer line. And whenever there is a question that like, I know doctors come to her to learn their expertise. So she is like a mentor to the doctors that we talk to on a day-to-day basis. With no further ado, and with a Jock Brothers round of applause, I would like to introduce you to our sister, Dr. Parks. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sir.
You have any opening statements you want to make?
Yeah, I'll just do a brief introduction. So many people don't realize I actually have a PhD. And so that's really substantially different than a medical doctor because really my degree is in molecular biology and biochemistry and cell biology. So I have many different, and it's cell signaling. And so we really look at the DNA, the cell, and the root cause of things, and then go up to the tissue level, the organ level. And so physiology starts with the cell in each different kind of organ. And so that's really not how doctors are trained. And right now, because we do know so much more, there needs to be a little bit more of an interface. And so a lot of doctors are really interested in, in putting those pieces together. And I value the doctors because they're seeing the patients so they can tell you what's actually working clinically, if they're, open to really exploring, addressing root causes.
Praise be to Allah. So thank you, Dr. Parks. And we wanted to tackle a topic. I don't think it's been tackled too much late around podcasts with the Nation of Islam, but this is a very important topic. This topic is dealing with sugar, just sugar. It's a silent killer, and I don't know, diabetes. I know we did a show on diabetes about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we pretty much highlight the fact that diabetes is like has bloomed all over the place.
Yes.
Over, more especially in the United States, more especially with Black people of color. And I just thought, after talking to Brother Achman and Brother Jackie, that, I think Brother Jackie actually wanted to do this show in particular. We just thought this was a show that we had to do to put more information out there about sugar. And we had to have a certain expertise to come onto the show. And so thank you again, Dr. Potts, for taking our invitation. So let's get right into it. First of all, just to get the ball rolling, I know all the negatives. We're going to get to the negative, but is there anything good about that you could talk about in terms of sugar right now?
Is there anything good? Tastes good. Well, I will say that sugar, dextrose, table sugar, is actually better than high fructose corn syrup. So when you are choosing a treat, a sugary product, it's actually advantageous to choose one that actually has real sugar. And now they're actually starting to go back to soda that has real sugar, because the high fructose corn syrup is super, super bad for your metabolism and your liver and causes fatty liver. So if you are having a treat and choose between high fructose corn syrup and actual real sugar is less detrimental to your body.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one of the issues, or one of the things that interests Brother Jackie so much, because there's so many different names for sugar and high fructose corn sugar. Did I pronounce that right?
High fructose corn syrup.
Right. That's one of the names for sugar. So if you're looking for sugar on the can and it says what she just said, that's actually one of the names for sugar, and according to her, it's much worse than sugar. But before we go that far, I know some people are starting to use this raw sugar substance. Can you tell us the difference between white sugar and brown sugar?
Well, generally speaking, your brown sugar is less processed, so it has more of its natural minerals and things in it. And so it's going to be slightly healthier in terms of it's going to have more nutrients. That said, it's still sugar. It's just a little bit more nutrient dense. Now, when you go to something like molasses, that has so many more different components in it that your body is going to digest it a little bit differently. It's not going to. One of the problems with sugar is it causes an insulin spike. If you think about it, before the modern day where we processed everything and then processed and got this sugar, you had to eat an orange or eat some corn or eat a raw food, a real food, in order to get some sugar. And your body had to break it down to get that sugar. Since we've sort of purified the sugar out and isolated it, you can dump enormous amounts of sugar into the system that your body isn't really made for. And depending on where you're from, I know people from Asia, white rice is really, really sugary, right? Basically, it has sugar content. So their pancreas actually makes more insulin to deal with the constant onslaught of sugary rice, basically, of the sugar that's in rice naturally. If you come from a different genetic background, your body may not respond to sugar very well. And as people of African descent, ours doesn't. I have been pre-diabetic, and my family has struggled with diabetes issues our whole life. And I've always eaten healthy. If I ate a donut in the morning, I would just feel like I was going to die. My blood sugar would spike, and then I would get too much insulin dumped into the system that would clear all the sugar from my blood. And then I feel like I was going to pass out. And then then you want to grab something sugary because you feel like you're going to pass out. So it's this cycle. Wow. So that insulin spike that is caused by sugar is one of the things that is very detrimental. And if you have sugar in the context of a fruit or a vegetable, a whole food, then it is not as likely to, if there's fiber in it, it's not as likely to spike your insulin, and it's not as bad for you as the processed sugar.
But
Go ahead.
first question that you asked Kawhi about some of the good things about sugar, the body needs the sugar for energy, correct?
So so we have something called blood sugar when you eat something. And so generally speaking, there's not processed sugar in nature. So how we would get our sugars is you would eat a fruit, or more commonly you'd eat something starchy like bread or potatoes or rice. And your body would starch is actually a long chain of sugars. And in your digestion, it would break those down into shorter chains and eventually shorter and shorter chains until you have one little sugar molecule or two. Usually it's a disaccharide. Sugar is a disaccharide. So your body will break it down. When you eat just that one already broken down thing, it just floods your system because your body doesn't have to take time to break it down. So it's safer or less detrimental to your body in the whole foods, in the starches, because it actually takes time to break down. And in fact, some starches actually feed your gut bacteria. And those bacteria produce a lot of anti-inflammatory, really important signaling molecules. And if you eat a lot of processed sugar, you actually feed bad bacteria that can be very inflammatory. And the bacteria themselves produce signaling molecules that make you crave more processed sugar. So we're talking about the sugar in candy bars and in soft drinks, or just, dumping a spoonful of sugar in your tea. And like having a spoonful of sugar in your tea in the morning, probably not a big thing, but if you consistently do that, your body, your bacteria are going to start actually craving sugar. Whereas if you're eating whole foods and you have soluble fiber, your bacteria are actually going to break down some of that fiber and some of those starches and produce really, really important signaling molecules that are highly anti-inflammatory and that also affect your mood and 100 other things.
So let me ask you this, Dr. Parks. Now, with all that sugar does to the body, if we wanted to just say, I don't want sugar no more, could we just simply stop? Or it's almost like you're saying it's addictive.
It's addictive. I know. I know how bad it is. And then it's like, I'm always like falling off the wagon and getting back on, falling off the wagon. So I try to I don't try to buy any treats for my house. Like if I go out to the store, maybe I'll buy one little treat that if I eat it, it's done after my meal, right? Because if I have it in the house, you know what it is. It's like 11 o'clock at night. You're like digging through stuff. There's gotta be some chocolate here somewhere. So it's very addictive. It's highly addictive. And part of that is because it changes the whole biochemistry of your body to make your body crave it. And so once you get done, away from those cravings, like I find when I do a 3-day fast, I was just thinking this morning, I woke up and I was a little hungry and I was like, that's weird, because I wasn't hungry at all when I did a 3-day fast. So part of it is what we give our bodies is what they start expecting. And so the more we can kind of take that out of our diet, or only do it at the end of the meal as the dessert, or also incorporate healthy fats. So it used to be when you had a dessert, like something like the filling in lemon meringue pie, like it's called lemon curd. I was looking at a recipe. It had 6 egg yolks in it. So those egg yolks are actually highly, highly nutritious. And when you have fat and hopefully healthy fats in conjunction with sugar, then it's going to make it less likely to spike your insulin. And it's spiking the insulin that's extremely problematic. So when we went to this sort of low fat thing where everything's low fat, and then you would get it, and it was basically just processed sugar and processed flour. And it really was terrible for our bodies because it would spike our insulin. When your insulin spikes, it takes all of the sugar out of your blood and moves it into your cells. And then you don't feel very good, but then you also get fat because you're constantly putting sugar into your cells. And then when you get too much, your body says, there's too much sugar here, I'll turn it into fat for storage.
Wow. So let me ask you this. If a person does not have diabetes, they're not pre-diabetic, what are signs to them that they are getting too much sugar?
So, okay. The idea, if you go to the doctor, they'll measure some numbers and say you're pre-diabetic or you have diabetes. I've never actually been to the doctor and been diagnosed. I just know I feel terrible when I eat sugar. I can feel my insulin spike. So like I know that it's bad. So I would say, what are the signs that you're having? Okay. So the thing is, if you eat too much sugar, you're going to become diabetic. Okay. So some people may be more predisposed than others, so they might become more diabetic quicker. But I remember my sister, her husband, she said that he was drinking these big gulps with all the soda in it every day, 72 ounces or something. And eventually he was like, I've got to stop this. I literally feel like I was going to die. And he wasn't even fat. He wasn't even predisposed, where she had always been super healthy. And I've always been super healthy, but I am predisposed. So here's the thing. There are many, eating too much sugar, and when you spike your insulin, you actually wear out your pancreas. And so this is very consistent with some things that are in Eat to Live as far as continually eating. So every time you eat sugar, you force your pancreas to make more insulin. Eventually, you can actually wear out your pancreas, and that's where you get type 2 diabetes. Unfortunately, in this day and age, we're actually seeing many people come up with type 1 diabetes as adults. Now, type 1 diabetes used to only be juvenile onset, and those are the people that need to be injected with insulin. And because some components of diabetes are autoimmune. So when we were children, nobody had an autoimmune disease. But now we're seeing everyone has 1, 2, 3 autoimmune diseases. And this is because of chronic immune activation. So a lot of it is the chemicals and things that are sprayed on the food that are destroying our gut and letting things leak through our gut into our bloodstream, where it's activating our immune system again and again and again. And, our bad diet with sugar is one component of that, is actually causing autoimmunity. Another thing is, of course, the injections and, the vaccinations are hyperstimulating the immune system. And when you do that, when you hyperstimulate the immune system, you are going to end up with autoimmune conditions, and diabetes is one of those. So there's kind of like a huge convergence of factors that are contributing to this. One other huge predisposition, I just gave a lecture in my website, vita.org, on fats and cholesterol, because it's super, super fascinating to me. And one of the things that I found out when I was researching statins is they increase your risk of diabetes by 30%. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me say that again. The data that I saw showed that statins increase your risk of diabetes by 30% because they lower cholesterol, and cholesterol is really, really, really super important for your body. So we were taught that we should do this low-fat, high-carbohydrate diet, and they took all the fat out of our treats so that they were really, really sugary, when in fact that fat, that cholesterol, those eggs, if they're healthy fats, can be actually really good for you. And you can have like a healthy treat after your meal that actually contains cholesterol and healthy fats that can make it less likely that sugar is going to cause you to become diabetic.
But so what you're saying is the question that Carly just asked: if you're eating anything in today's food, you're going to have sugar in your bloodstream. Now you just have to look at the levels.
Well, okay, yes and no, because if you're not eating processed sugar like a candy bar, a soft drink, then you're going to be fine, right? If you're just eating really normal whole foods, because those are made that your body breaks them down slowly and releases the sugar slowly. It's dumping the sugar in too quickly that causes the problem, where it floods into the bloodstream and your body doesn't know what to do. Okay, because those sugars or the starches have to be broken down slowly. So it's just a totally different thing than the processed sugar. One thing that I want to talk about is that heart disease is caused by sugar, by refined, treats, like refined sugar. We're not talking about your potatoes or your brown rice or whatever. We're talking about candy bars and soda pops and putting actual clumps of sugar in your coffee or whatever. Heart disease is caused by inflammation of the blood vessels, inflammation of your cardiovascular system. And that is caused by too much sugar. They've lied to us about the role of cholesterol. They've said that cholesterol causes heart disease when it's actually sugar. Sugar inflames the arteries. The arteries get so inflamed that they tell the body to make more cholesterol to try to deal with the problem. And so then they now are marketing these cholesterol lowering drugs, which have just this plethora of side effects, when you could really reduce your risk of heart disease substantially just by taking out the refined sugar, the simple sugars, the treats out of your diet, and eating a whole foods diet and making sure you incorporate healthy fats.
And the difference between the sugars as it deals with glucose. What is glucose versus fructose?
So, okay, I'm trying to think of a simple way to explain this. So table sugar is actually two sugars linked together. It's called sucrose, and there's two little molecules linked together. So it's a disaccharide, which means two sugars. Glucose is a single sugar, and so we don't actually have glucose like available to us. Our body breaks down the two little sugars into glucose. Glucose is one of those, and fructose, I think, is the other. So disaccharides, that's the sugar that we eat. Sucrose, which is table sugar, is a disaccharide. That means it's two sugars, glucose and fructose. Fructose is found in fruit, so it's fruit sugar. But when they processed fruit or even corn, they were able to get out that fructose, but then it's been kind of changed by the manufacturing process, and our bodies would never eat it in that level of concentration, like when they make that high fructose corn syrup. So that's like processing fruits and like corn and stuff to take that out, but to like make it so that that's all there is, and it's taken out of its natural context. So sugar is two sugars, like table sugar. Sucrose is it's a disaccharide. It has two. Your body breaks it into glucose and fructose, and it uses either glucose or fructose. It can use either. But again, the point is that it needs to break all, and starch is a whole bunch of them. It could be glucose, fructose. There are a couple of other ones, and they're all linked together, and your body slowly breaks them down.
Dr. Parks, I have a coworker that goes and get coffee in the morning, and this is what they order. All right, they ask for 4 sugars and 4 creams.
Well, at least they're putting the cream in there.
Say again?
At least they're putting the cream in there.
Why is that? Because I thought the cream was just another way of saying sugar. Like,
no, cream is fat. Fat is good. So, okay. So 2 things. If it is, and we're, and I believe in the nation and How to Eat to Live, it says to have a full whipping cream or, with your coffee. A healthy cream actually has really, really healthy fats that are really good for the body, and it prevents your insulin from spiking. So if you put cream in your coffee, you're going to feel more stable. You're going to be less jittery, and you're giving your body, you're making it so that sugar isn't absorbed quite so quickly. So that cream in your coffee or your tea is actually really good. I drink tea, like this morning I had green tea. I usually put actually a pat of sweet butter in mine. And that really helps to offset, that way. But what I would say is the commercial creamers are really bad because they're made out of garbage. But if you have actually heavy cream or even half and half that you put in, that is really healthy and helps mitigate all of the sugar. Not that he should have 4 scoops of sugar in it. So, and I know people who, maybe they only have their 1 cup of coffee in the morning, but they've got caramel drizzled all of it. The more of that processed sugar you have in it, the worse that is for your body, because it's highly inflammatory when it's absorbed. Now, when you eat a whole meal, that sugar can't be absorbed really quickly because it's got to get through all of the other stuff in your stomach. So that's why you eat your sugar last, your sugary treat last, because then you don't want to eat it first and have it absorbed quickly into your bloodstream, because when you have a lot of, and that's what diabetes is. The name for diabetes is high blood sugar. So let me teach a little bit on diabetes. We now know that juvenile diabetes is actually autoimmune. and that either a viral infection or as the result of a vaccination, the immune system goes a little haywire and attacks the pancreas and kills the cells that make insulin. Back in the day, if you had juvenile diabetes, you were starving to death. So I have a picture that I would use when I was teaching school of a mother that's holding her probably 8-year-old boy, and he is just skeletal, absolutely skeletal, because no matter how much she feeds him, he doesn't make any insulin. When that sugar goes into his blood, he does not have insulin to tell it to go into his cells. So his cells have no sugar, which can then be converted to fat and made into other things or whatever, and made into energy. So he has no energy. He has no sugar in his cells because that's what insulin does. It takes sugar out of the blood into the cells. Now, diabetes by definition is high blood sugar because he has no insulin. He has really, really, really high blood sugar. And sugar is super inflammatory. So since he can't take the sugar out of the blood into the cells, what happens is the sugar circulating in the blood actually damages all of the blood vessels to the degree where you can actually damage it so much that you might need a leg amputated, or you might actually lose your vision because it's damaging the blood vessels in the eye and in the leg and everything. So basically, that's what diabetes is now, is that when you eat too much sugar, what happens is usually you get an insulin response, and the insulin says, sugar, go into the cells where you're supposed to be. And then let's say you eat a donut, sugar goes in your blood. Insulin says, sugar, go into the cells. Sugar goes into the cells. Then you're like, I'm hungry again. You need another donut. Same things happen. Finally, the cells are like, more sugar? Are you kidding me? No. And they take off. You know how if it's Halloween and you don't want anyone coming to your house, you turn off the lights and shut the door and pretend nobody's home. That's what the cells do. They're like, we're already fat. We have all of this sugar. We're converting to fat. The cell is full of fat. You keep sending sugar. No more. So they take all the receptors for insulin off, and they hide from the sugar. And so the sugar keeps circulating in your blood because the cells, and that's called insulin resistance, because you keep eating this sugary food, your cells are like, enough. They stop taking it in. So the sugar stays in the blood, and where it really, really damages the blood vessels. And those damaged blood vessels cause problems where we know that, many people can actually have a leg amputated or have all kinds of different problems because sugar in the blood is highly, highly inflammatory.
What about it turning into water?
So, okay, when you make energy, then your body does actually convert sugar into cellular energy, which is called ATP. And trying to think about that process, I'm going to assume that water is a byproduct. There's a certain, usually water is made when you put things together. But anyway, that's a little bit complex. But in cellular metabolism, water can be a byproduct, but sugar is not directly converted to water. But during energy production, there could be some water produced, or when you actually are making glycogen, when you take sugar out of the blood and put it in the liver, your body actually puts it into a storage form, which is called glycogen. And when it does that, actually water would be produced as a byproduct. Interestingly enough, our bodies used to have an enzyme that converted sugar into vitamin C. And many animals still have this enzyme. And we have the DNA for it, but it's mutated. So we used to actually be able to eat sugar and turn it into vitamin C, which is an antioxidant, something that's really healthy for our bodies. But now we don't have that enzyme anymore. So I think that would be really great if I could have my sugar and then turn it into something really healthy, but it doesn't work that way anymore.
Exercise. With that type of sugar in your body, and you start saying the working out, say like a long walk, how could that help with that much sugar being in your body and it's circulating? Can you tell us the process of that?
Right. So if you do eat a snack or, generally have some sugar in your body or whatever, when you go for a walk, basically that's going to help your cells take it in and use it and produce energy immediately. And so it's going to help signal the use of that sugar. And so that's going to be beneficial. It's also like for instance, what happens is when you eat, and it doesn't have to be just simple sugar, it can be anything, your body breaks things down and it releases the sugar slowly into the blood, and then the insulin comes and puts it into your liver, and you actually store 48 hours of energy basically in the form of this kind of starch like thing called glycogen. And so you store that in your liver, and that provides you with 48 hours worth of energy that your body then releases and breaks down. So let's say you're fasting. That's why day 3 is going to be the hardest, because you have 48 hours of actually glycogen stored in your liver. And when you go for a walk, it signals your body to break that down. So actually, if you're hungry, going for a walk will actually help you not eat a snack, because it will actually stimulate the breakdown of glycogen in your liver. It will release those sugars that your body needs for energy into the bloodstream so they can go to your muscles or your brain or whatever. And so exercise stimulates that, fasting stimulates that. That's why a lot of times if you're fasting the next day, you're not hungry, because it's telling the liver, hey, I need you to do it. Nobody's feeding me anything. I need you to do it. And so we actually teach our bodies whether to become hungry in response to needing calories, or whether to check out our liver and say, hey, do you still have some calories in there that we can utilize in order to make our fuel? So, our food has, generally speaking, starches. We're not talking about simple sugar that we break down and form energy, but we also do use fats for energy, and we use protein for energy. And so our bodies will actually respond to us. If we decide that we don't want to eat a lot of sugar or even a lot of starches, then if we mostly eat our calories in the form of fat, our body will actually learn to metabolize the fat and actually use that as our main source of calories. But it may take training our bodies to do that. Like if you just go cold turkey from your regular diet to like a high fat, low carbohydrate diet. Some people have gone to a high fat diet. Like they know that with certain children or people who have seizures, if they go to almost a fat only diet, like maybe no seizure medications work, that because sugar is really inflammatory and it was helping their seizures, it's so anti-inflammatory that it can help them not have seizures anymore. And so, of course, finding out how to just eat fat every day is a whole trial on itself. But the point being is that your body can actually normalize that and actually get the fuel that it needs from fat. So we don't always have to use sugar as our form of fuel. And in fact, it will actually break down protein as well. All that causes, it's just a little harder on the body to break down the proteins. And, it just takes a little bit more for it to do that. But if you aren't eating anything, eventually, after you use all of your glycogen, after you use all your fat stores, it will actually start breaking down your muscle for energy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
That's what I'm about to. Yes, man. Go ahead.
When you're dealing with the muscles, if you're strength training and using weights, does the muscles pull more or need more of that than?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, if you are working out all the time, your body is going to need, more energy. And the thing is, it also, when you produce energy, it's inflammatory. So if you're working out all the time, you actually are also going to increase your levels of inflammation. And everyone thinks that this is always a great thing, but it isn't necessarily. And that's why, like, some simple things like walking isn't going to increase your inflammation a ton, as opposed to like weightlifting or running or, biking. Those are going to call for a lot of energy from your body. But in general, the reason that we don't have energy is because the parts of our cells that make it have become dysfunctional because of toxins and different things that have damaged them, not because we don't have enough calories in general. So the idea that we just aren't getting enough calories. Now, obviously, there is a level where you do need more calories, but the fact that we feel tired or like we need more calories in general is because our mitochondria, which are the organelles that produce our energy, are not working optimally. And so it turns out that like children who become autistic, they find that they have mitochondrial dysfunction. So when they were stressed with some sort of stressor, such as a vaccine, which can also damage the mitochondria, or even an illness, their body isn't able to make the energy that it needs to deal with that crisis. And so when your mitochondria aren't working well, you are actually going to be much more susceptible to any kind of chronic illness or even any sort of pathogen, virus or whatever, because your mitochondria make your energy. And so one of the things that I do is try to help people understand how to like rejuvenate your mitochondria so that, and fasting is one of the things that will help with that, but so that you are actually making enough energy that you don't feel tired. And so that you're not grabbing that soda or that candy bar that you don't really need. And you're grabbing that because you feel like I'm tired. But the issue is that your body has become not as functional as it needs to be because of all the stuff in our environment and whatever.
And based on what I'm hearing, for those that got like diabetes that really suffering from sugar, that refined sugar is absolutely the worst thing you could do. And then, but if you cut out the refined sugar, and I guess also add the exercise with it over time, you can. Could you say your body could heal itself?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what people find when they go to a whole foods diet. So, just in a grocery store, stay out of the middle aisles with all that processed food and go get yourself some whole foods, right? And, don't like limit yourself to the point where you're crawling down the street to get a candy bar because you just can't take it anymore. Just try to incorporate it after your meal. And so what we generally find is that people go through a whole foods diet, really significantly reduce their symptomatic diabetes and can reverse that diabetes. Now, everyone is a little different because the causes are slightly different, but in general, the body has a huge capacity to heal itself. And things like fasting actually kind of reset your insulin receptors. So remember when I said, if you keep eating donut after donut, finally your cells, they turn off, they won't receive any more sugar. And then it stays in your blood where it's highly inflammatory. If you exercise and eat right, and this is, you only need moderate exercise. You don't have to turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger or something. If you eat right and get some moderate exercise, your insulin, your cells will put insulin receptors back on and become responsive to insulin again. One of the things that I will say is that if you are overweight, many times we store toxins in our fat. And one of the reasons why it can be hard to lose weight is because our fat is actually trying to keep those toxins away from our organs. And if we lose weight, it'll go into our bloodstream and actually damage our organs because there are so many fat soluble toxins in our world. And this is something I actually just recently did a lecture on, that they can actually disrupt our endocrine, disrupt our sexual development and all kinds of things like that. But those are actually stored in our fat. So, and I talked very, very briefly about my website, vita.org. One of the things that we really focus on is just simple step-by-step ways that people can start to detoxify their body safely, because you don't want to go through some huge detox and dump all of those toxins that have been, stored in your fat or whatever into your bloodstream. That can, really damage your organs or something. So it's really complex. And that's why I do different talks and I try to educate people. After I'm done with every talk, I'm like, I'll take questions now. Nobody ever has any questions because I guess I've given them so much information. They're like, my brain is full now. I'll come back next week. I don't know. But I really, I do have an entire lecture that I do on diabetes. So that's something that hopefully I haven't done that one for my website, vita.org yet, but eventually maybe I'll put that in there just so that people understand how this whole blood sugar thing works. And in that I had diagrams so you can see it, and you can go back and rewatch it. But I teach a lot on this when I was a high school teacher because it is so central to our daily lives and how we live, understanding how you process your glucose and why someone who's diabetic might go into diabetic ketoacidosis or might have a seizure or might go into a coma. You really need to know what's going on in those processes because more and more people are having those types of issues.
Please. Okay, that's our website on there. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering what that was. You was introducing it?
Right. I was just going to say for those, she just mentioned vita.org. If you want to go on her website, please visit her website. It will break down or go more in depth in what you're actually talking about today, correct?
Right. Well, I don't have a lecture yet on diabetes. I did just do one on fats and cholesterol that is like,
Okay.
should be up very, very shortly. But I do a lot of things on why we're getting autoimmune diseases. So the website is the Vaccine Injury Teaching Alliance.org. I don't know if you're gonna have to mute that when you, but and so the free pages have a lot of information on injections and other things like that. And so those are a great resource behind a very small paywall that's used to maintain the site. I have a lot of information on detoxification, on understanding. I have a section on African people of African descent, their genetic susceptibilities and issues that specifically deal with them. And the idea is to just keep, and I try to keep some of the presentations are usually like an hour and a half long, and I have a presentations page, but within the website on like what's wrong with me and all of these different things like that, I have like 5 to 10 minute videos. So like for detoxification, and I have links to PDFs that have more natural products so that you can like reduce your toxic load and things like that, because a lot of our dysfunction is because we're toxic, and that's why our bodies aren't functioning optimally. We're not making the energy we need from the food that we eat, and so even though we eat well, we're still tired.
I like what you said about the whole food diet. My question is, have you ever wore a glucose monitor, or do you back that? And the differences in finding sugar that creates spikes in your monitoring your glucose.
Okay, I understood the first part of the question. What was the second part?
In dealing with the sugars in different foods that spikes.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people really do need to monitor their sugar. And so, I mean, it's probably advisable. I don't, but I tend to be pretty healthy, and I can kind of feel it. I know when I'm off track. But for many people, right, they might eat some potatoes and then their blood sugar might spike. So here's the thing. The reason that that's happening is because your metabolism is dysregulated. And so you can change your metabolism by actually changing your diet and your habits and doing like things like intermittent fasting. So once you actually sort of reset your system and come back to a state of health, you shouldn't need to monitor your glucose. So you will find that, like, I find that when I'm eating healthy, like I can actually cheat more. I can eat a donut and not feel terrible because my body is now not dysregulated. So it's the dysregulation of the body that causes the need to monitor your glucose, because it's not dealing with it in the proper way. And it's not dealing with it in the proper way because it's dysregulated. And it's dysregulated because of all of the chemicals, the toxic load, an aberrant immune response. So there are many different things that cause our bodies to become out of balance, or just the fact that we're eating really, really poorly in terms of garbage, right? So once you actually get your body back on track, and that might take 6 months, it might take a year, it might take 3 years, depending on everyone has to move at their own pace. But if you're able to do that, then you're no longer going to need to do that. You can do it if you want. And what that monitoring will tell you is when that change happens. Okay, it looks like my body's dealing with this better. So it's not like the fact that we even have to do it just shows that we're so dysregulated, that our body is not dealing with sugar in an appropriate fashion.
Right. Two-part question. Earlier you said the creamers that are being used in people's coffee, you said they're garbage. And then I want you to explain that part, because it's the hazelnuts, that's the French vanillas that everybody seems to like, because
I know.
I mean, you don't have, some people use it in place of sugar, but
right, because it has sugar in it. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then I would like for you to also explain just how fasting can help you, I guess, right your wrongs, get back on track in terms of those that's dealing with sugar issues.
Right. So quickly with the creamers, a lot of those are made with seed oils, whether it's soy oil or corn oil that's in there. Milk fat, which is cream, which is extremely healthy for you. I'm not in the saturated fat camp is bad. I think saturated fats are actually good for the body. But those seed oils that are in the commercial creamers are really, really toxic for your body and extremely, extremely inflammatory. So I would not advise that you have those creamers at all. And I know it's kind of a sacrifice because, anybody who starts drinking those, they're really tasty. And so you're like, but you really need to, what you can do is you can just get, your half and half or your full cream and maybe just put in a quarter teaspoon of vanilla into your drink, like real vanilla or, something like that. So you don't want to be using those flavored creamers. They're, really, really bad for the body.
What about honey in place of the creamer?
So honey is sugar. So that's going to be more like your fructose. So, you want fat added. So you could add some butter, you could add some ghee, you can add some cream, you can add half and half. All of those, you want to add fat to help mitigate the sugar. And fat is actually super healthy for you if it's a healthy fat. And the healthy fats would be those that are natural, like from cream, right? Not creamers, like real actual cream from a cow.
But the creamers say no sugar added, 0 sugar.
Right. So then they've got some toxic chemical in its place. So what they have found with the sugar substitutes that we like to use, one of them, sucralose, when it came out, I looked at the chemical structure and it had chlorine on it. I said, that's got chlorine on it. It's toxic. So, and of course, in very short order, they found out it was toxic. We've known that aspartame or NutraSweet was toxic for quite some time, that it's a neurotoxin. And many of them don't even work. They actually, your body, if it tastes something sweet, it sends certain signals where even though there aren't the calories, it still has a sugar-like effect on your body. So you're like not gaining anything. In fact, those sugar substitutes cause more dysregulation than actually having sugar yourself. So if you're going to have sugar, a sugary treat, make sure it's actual real sugar, and makes not high fructose corn syrup, not another kind of artificial sweetener, right? And or maybe have honey. And so, and some of them even like I'm not sure if it's monk fruit, but there are a few that even though they're from natural sources, they're absorbed really quickly and they're not good for people with diabetes. So really, and if you eat the sugar again, you want to have it, add some of that cream to your coffee or your tea to mitigate the effect of that sugar. I forgot the second part of your question.
How can fast? Yes, ma'am.
So what fasting will do is it will help your cells reset their insulin receptors. So it will help with insulin resistance. So if you're insulin resistant, diabetes, again, is high blood sugar. If your cells will not respond to insulin, you have a lot of sugar just keep circulating in your blood, and that destroys your arteries and veins and causes heart disease as well. So if you fast, it will reset those insulin receptors so that they're more responsive. It will also reset your mitochondria. It will help heal your mitochondria so that they will be able to produce more energy, and it will actually reformat your DNA. So if you've had some things that are causing your body to be dysregulated, it will start moving it, sort of reformatting it back to its default. You know how you ever screw up your computer and like there's a way to go, restore default settings. You're like, I don't know what I did, but restore the default settings. Your body kind of has that too. And we don't understand it very well, but we know that some natural processes like fasting have the ability that your body is innately intelligent to have it start to go back to those default settings before you screwed it up with all the toxins and the bad food and whatever else you were insulting it with.
So the longer you fast, right? I know we normally do 3-day fasts.
You don't, like even the intermittent one, eating once a day is also going to help dramatically with that. And I would say if you are not, many people struggle with just eating between 4 to 6 p.m., but the shorter that you can make that window. So like, if you eat between 4 and 7, that's better than eating once in the morning and then later. So if you can keep that window of eating shorter, that is going to be more beneficial than eating like at 2 different times of the day. The longer your fasting window is, the better those outcomes are going to be metabolically.
Mm.
And so you don't like it isn't a thing where you have to be perfect to have a good effect. And so you don't want to like throw the baby out with the bathwater and like, oh, I couldn't do that, so just like I'm going to give it up. And any amount of shortening that window in which you're eating during the day is going to be advantageous in terms of resetting your metabolism, getting your insulin receptors working, and also, there can also be things like when you eat certain types of prebiotic things, like soluble starches, certain starches and certain different vegetables, it can actually send signals to your body that increase satiety. And so there are ways to actually help your body, like certain things that you can do. They're called prebiotics that you can take that will help your body feel more full and actually produce the signaling molecules that it needs and sort of reset the gut in terms of making the things that it needs. Because we used to, again, be on a whole food diet. And when we're on a really good whole food diet, like I find when I have navy beans for dinner, the next day I'm much less likely to have any kind of hunger pains. Because the type of fiber and soluble fiber that's in there and digestible starches actually tell the body to produce hormones that increase satiety, not just in the moment, but actually over the next like 24 hours.
Does water, drinking more water affect the molecular structure
Of the sugar or
bloodstream, right?
Well, I would just say that drinking more water just helps keep you hydrated. And since everything, you need to be hydrated for your body to function properly. So, I would just say if you're hungry, sometimes you're actually not hungry, you're thirsty, and drinking some water can actually alleviate your hunger pains because you were actually really just thirsty. So, but in terms of the sugar, no, it's not really changing anything. I mean,
Okay, good deal, good deal. So we have reached right at the very end of the show. This part of the show we just give final words. And Dr. Parks, I want to give you the honors of the final word, first final word.
I would say eat a whole foods diet. Don't stay away from saturated fats. Eat good quality cream, butter, some natural cheeses in your diet. Some good, very digestible sources of protein are also good. And just save your sugar for dessert, and just actually keep getting back on the bandwagon. So like when you fall off, just know that we're all here, because it's like anywhere you go and it's so convenient, and so just know that everybody's struggling with it, and give yourself some grace, but realize that changes are possible. And you can actually have a sugary treat, but put some fat in there, put some egg yolks in there, put some heavy cream in there, like, make a pudding with heavy cream and egg yolks and sugar. And that's going to be a lot healthier and more nutrient dense. So, eat things that are healthier for you, and just try not to snack on garbage during the day.
Are you going to be loading up your website with some of these, alternatives in terms of how to fight diabetes in the future?
Probably. I have not put much on diabetes, but it's such an important topic. Like I said, I did just do a lecture on it, so I have to decide exactly how I want to get out that information, but I will be giving that lecture more. And so that is something that I could consider doing, on this platform or some other platform, and then, making clips of it. I'm not sure. It doesn't really, it's a huge central topic, but, for my particular angle, for my website, it's not quite as central. So, but it's something to really think about, but it's something that's absolutely needed. And that presentation is ready to go whenever people are ready for it. And I do have a link to one that I've done that I can I think I'll have to check and see if I can send you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Ahmed, final words.
Thank you, Sister Dr. Christina Park, for taking time out of your schedule. The website is, what is it, vita.org?
Yes, sir. vi-ta.org.
PA.org. Please go on that website for more information. We thank you for coming on our show. Always wanted to throw a plug in. I know sugar, we spoke about many different things, but we spoke about the addiction to it, and changing your lifestyle is very huge in that. And we always want to give a plug into How to Eat to Live to open your mindset. And Honorable Elijah Muhammad wanted to create a new mind for us, the mind of God. And that's how to eat to live, and building your body, building your infrastructure, and the way you carry yourself through your day and your life. Change your mind, change your life. Read the book. There's 2 books. You can order it at any time. Thank you all for joining on our show. And thank you, Dr. Christina Parks, for your time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let me just give the final words, Dr. Parks. I know it was at short notice, but I thank you for taking our invitation. Look, I knew that if we want to tackle this particular type of a subject, that you was the one to get. I'm glad you made yourself available to us. And I mean, you always very gracious with your time. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. I really think that we just scratched the surface, really.
We did. And it's again, this is why I give lectures, because it's a scaffolding. It's like you have to learn each little thing before you can understand the next concept. And that's, I taught a lot about this in school because it's such a central issue. And I did just do a lecture a couple of months ago for my mosque. And I have to see if it was on our M61 website. But let me see if it is, and I can, maybe direct you to that so you can kind of watch it, get a little bit better idea. And, and it's the kind of thing that eventually I'd like to do that. And maybe I can get it from the brother who did it. But to take clips of things like that and, and you can kind of scaffold them in, because it's a long presentation. And one of the sisters, after I was done, she gave me a standing ovation. She's like, I understand this, and I think that's, people get really excited when that understanding finally dawns on them. And sometimes it has to be like a step-by-step scaffolding teaching process to help them understand it, because it's complex biochemistry, but it's complex biochemistry that affects us every day. And of course, so is Eat to Live. Like, some people just read through it once, like I'm reading through it 40 times, and there's just so much in there, because behind everything that he says is a layer of complex biochemical principles. And some of them, like, I've had questions about certain things. Is it this or is it this? And that is answered in what he says, but it's in an indirect way, because I see the biochemical principles behind what is essentially very simple guidance. But it's like, and so one of the things that I hope to do is really kind of structure that so people can see that what I see, because they don't understand what the biochemistry behind the guidance. And I can say this, and this all have to do with this biochemical principle, right? Which nobody else would really know, right? And this, and this is telling us this. And I had a question about this, and he answered it by saying this, and this. All of these things in all different parts of the book all have to do with this one concept, this one question that I had. And this teaches me that I should look more at this, all in-depth biochemistry, right? Because it's consistent. It's consistent. It's not haphazard, right? It is simple guidance based on underlying biochemical principles. Now, it'd be easy for me if you just put the biochemical principles, but like that wouldn't have helped anybody else.
Yes, ma'am.
That's just a testament to the depth of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You say he just make it so simple. Just do this. He don't get into why not to eat kale. He don't get into why to eat potatoes in frigid weather. But he should just do it, and you'll be fine. Where you actually, go deeper into it. Wow, I would like to get that information for really. And but again, thank you so much for your time. And maybe we can talk about that in the near future. Those
absolutely.
those
And there's so many different topics that I just have to settle on which one I think people will really resonate with. All
right. But there you have it. Any final announcements? Any other announcements, Brother Ahmed?
No, sir.
All right. But again, thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of the Jock Brothers Let Us Make Man. I hope you got something out of this. Please share this show. Please hit the subscribe button and the bell.